Hi there. Sorry about the quality. I'm using my phone. That's better. Also, my coffee mug is holding up my phone. So I asked on my Instagram what you guys wanted to see in my videos. There's a dog hair in my mouth. A lot of you voted for the repotting, cleaning, and watering of your plants. And a lot of you voted for both. You messaged me and asked if I could do both, which the other one was specific plant information. I will be getting to that eventually. There's a lot of information I gotta put down and together. So I'm gonna start with repotting. I have a little cheat sheet down here, so sorry. I don't want to ramble, which I do a lot. I'm doing right now. So with repotting, I like to let my plants sit after I get them. I like to get them acclimated to my area where I put them, the sun that they're getting, the water schedule they're on. It all changes when you buy them, when you get them gifted, anytime you get a plant. They're used to what that other person is doing to those plants. And they're not really used to what your schedule and, you know, your area might be. So I let them sit for about a week. If I can stretch it that long, I try to go, you know, at least a week to 3 weeks. When I want to repot, I stick them in an extra pot like this. So I leave them in the nursery pot. And then I find a pot that I think it might look good in. I put it in there. Maybe I'll have another one that I think it'll look better in. So I'll kind of switch it between pots, and that way I don't pot it into this, hate it, and then have to repot it and kind of shock the plant and, you know, make it go through moving a lot. They don't normally like that. A lot of plants hate that. So what I do is I stick it in here. You want to make sure the pot fits inside of the pot you want it to go into. So the nursery pot should fit fairly well in here. The biggest you should go is 2 inches bigger than the nursery pot. This one's a little bit wider than the nursery pot. I think it's going to work great. It's been sitting in this pot for a while. I've had this plant for a while. The second reason why you want to repot your plant is if the roots are sticking out of the bottom. At the moment, it's got maybe 2 roots sticking out of the bottom, but these are kind of shallow roots. It's still kind of a baby plant. I've had it for a month and a half maybe. So there's a little bit of root sticking out here. I wish I had another one, but you'll see the roots sticking out of the bottom. That's when you're like, I definitely have to repot this plant soon, because the roots at the bottom will start getting squished by the pot. They won't absorb as much water. It'll get cold, they'll get crunchy, and you want them to be nice, luscious, growing plants. Or if your plant is pushing out of the soil. Trying to think of what I had. Some of my calatheas were doing that, kind of pushing itself out. A lot of dracaenas. I'm sure I'll show you one. There's one that I need to repot that I will do on video. They'll start pushing themselves out of the pot because the roots are already down here, and they just kind of start growing out and they'll push out. Sometimes the roots will stick out of the top. Another reason to repot is your soil is compacted. You know, the water is just kind of running off the top, just going between the soil and the pot and just pouring out. It's not really getting a lot of the water it needs to get and absorb. This one is a little bit compacted, but it's also kind of dry. Or you can do it for aesthetic. If you really, really don't want to put your nursery pot in another pot, leave it like that for a while. You can change the pot. I do it a lot, and usually when I repot something, I keep it in that pot for as long as possible, until it starts growing roots out of the bottom again, or its health is declining, anything like that. So when you want to repot your plants is warm weather, growing season, or if inside of your house is warm and light, because they do go through their hibernation stage. They're not really growing in winter. A lot of plants don't grow in the winter. Some do. I'm sure I'll touch on that some other time. But in the cold weather, they aren't really doing much. They'll still kind of grow, but they are doing the best they can with what they got. So as soon as the sun starts warming up your house, you're getting a lot more sunlight in your house, it's a lot warmer, then your plant kind of comes out of hibernation and it's like, oh hey, I'm gonna start growing now, and pushing my roots out of the bottom of the pot. Another reason to repot is if your health is declining on your plant. If you notice anything you do is just not helping the plant, it's still drooping, it's dropping a lot of leaves, it looks like it's dying, at that point you would want to pull your plant out of the pot and look at its roots. If they're white, springy, clean, not clean, but not smelly roots, that's good. If they're black, if they smell, if they're squishy, sometimes roots will be like a reddish yellow color. That might be normal for that plant. Definitely Google it. Freaked me out the first time I saw that. But that might be normal. So you want nice looking roots. I have never taken this out of the pot, and it's been, you know, a little over a month. I don't know what the roots look like. I know it has been sitting at my work where it doesn't get a lot of sunlight. So I think that's why one leaf is turning a weird see-through red color. I think, pretty sure, it's just not getting a lot of sunlight. Also, these are very small. It's not getting enough sunlight. It's kind of growing through the pot. You know, it needs to step up. This health is not declining, but it's not doing the best it can. So the leaves are very small. They should be big. I want to repot it to give it what it needs, get it in the right sunlight and everything. Definitely not going to bring it back to work. It also gets a lot of dog hair on it from work. So I've been having to clean it a lot. Also the roots is when you should repot. So how to repot? You want to use a clean pot. If you bought it at a store and it looks clean, it looks fine, there's dirt in here from the plant, but it's not dusty, it's not gross, there's nothing living in it, you can use that. Usually I buy pots to let them sit for a while. They will get, you know, a spider in there or something. I just wipe it out. If you've used the pot before, I really recommend to clean the pot with warm water and dish soap and let it dry. You don't want to transfer any diseases or any pests or anything from an old plant to a new plant, or if there was anything sitting in here like old soil, some bugs will eat the soil that was in there, so you really want to clean it out. So you can use regular potting soil. This is not coffee, this is my soil. Reuse stuff. So I pre-mix my soil. I use regular potting soil. I think this is like Miracle Grow regular potting soil. You can go a step up and get, you know, the expensive kind. It's got worm castings in it. I can't remember, ocean something. You can go a step up and get the really expensive stuff. You can get the cheapest stuff, you know, you can find. It really depends on what you add to it. You can use just the regular potting soil and just that. That's it. Pot your plant. Done. Keep an eye on it. If you've been watering it too much, not as much. It all kind of depends on fertilizing and watering with the soil that you're going to be using. So I water too much. I've learned my lesson multiple times that I water too much. So I mix perlite and orchid bark in with my soil, and I've already pre-mixed it, so there's some bark in here. There's extra, the white stuff is perlite extra. There was some that came with the soil, but I like to add more just to aerate the soil and let it dry a little bit faster so I can keep watering it as much as I want. Actually, not really as much as I want, but more often than I need to. And the soil will dry faster. It also helps keep the air flow with the plant, with the roots and everything. You don't want air pockets, but you do want it to have some airflow. You don't want it to be compacted because then the roots can't grow. So now I will show you. I use old pots that I've washed out or just that sat for a long time. I'm just going to put a little bit of soil at the bottom of my pot. Right here. Always make sure you have a drainage hole, and always make sure you have something to catch the soil that's going to fall out of the bottom. So I put just a little bit in the bottom, and then I'll take my plant in an extra bucket to put all the old soil in. So you want to go in, squeeze the pot a little bit to kind of loosen it up. Especially if the roots are sticking out of the bottom, you want to be careful about pulling your plant right out of it. You want to kind of coax it out, let all the roots get back through where they came from. So, let's see if I can grab this the right spot. Sorry if you hear the traffic. A big truck just went by. Alright, this guy's stuck. Okay, here we go. Oh yeah. Alright. So you see this root system. This is a good root system. It's white. It looks springy. You can see the little fuzzies. It's growing all through it. I wasn't sure when I got this plant if it was just clippings stuck in soil, if someone just recently propagated it or not, but I did notice it declining a little bit, so I wanted to repot it anyways. So with what you want to do is you want to take off as much soil as you can. You don't have to take off all of it. Just anything that is usually at the top or right at the bottom around it. You can squish it a little bit. If the roots do break, that's okay. They grow more. Usually right where they break, they'll branch off another root from that. I'm getting soil everywhere. So you're going to dig your fingers in anywhere where there's not roots and just push the soil out. You can shake it. You can also run it under some water if you have extra water in your watering can with your hose, especially if your plant has been declining and the roots are stinky and black and gross. You want to take off as much soil as you can because you don't want to keep whatever is making that happen on the plant. So this guy is okay. He's fine. He doesn't need all of the soil taken off because he's got no stinkies, he's got no bugs, there's nothing gross looking, it's nothing of concern. I just want to, it's very dry, so I'm just kind of crunching around in this here. Get off. You want to open the bottom. If the plants have been growing, like forming in the shape of the pot, it might start choking itself. The roots will start tangling themselves in themselves and start choking themselves, and you'll see it at the top eventually. The plant health will be, you know, not in its best form, but if that does happen, take some scissors, clean scissors, any type of clipping device, and just kind of snip off those roots that are tangling themselves, and it will grow new roots. It'll be fine. Let it do its thing, but you don't want it to strangle itself because that's how you get a dead plant. And it takes a little bit to see that. A lot of Drainaceas do that. Very leafy, pokey plants or pokey leaves. I'm sure I will show you one eventually. I do have one that needs to be repotted within the next couple weeks, so I can show you that. The roots do grow in a weird circular form. Alright, so you want to get as much soil off, like my neighbors know. Alright, so that looks good to me. And then you put it right in here in your pot. Yep. They're going to start barking, sorry. And it's a little deep in there, so I want to add a little bit more soil at the bottom. Make a little divot for it to grow into. All right, there we go. I'm gonna push that baby down in there. Maybe make a little bit more of a divot. So you want the roots to be in the soil, obviously. Make a little bit out. All right, that looks good. Okay, so you want to keep in mind where the soil line was before. So some of these, because they were propagated, they're growing roots out of everywhere. Just stick the roots back in. All right, so you see that? You see some roots. You want to top dress that. You want to get all the soil around the plant next to the pot. So what you do is you just take some and shake it out in here. I wish I could show you a little bit better, but hopefully you catch my drift of what I'm trying to do. All right. It's going to take a bit. Okay. And you can kind of hold the bottom, tap it so all the soil gets in where the roots are, and there's no huge air pockets. Get in there. All right, and then more on this side. So my next video, I do want to do the specific plant information. I wanted to do Marantas, Calatheas, and I think Stramanthe was on that too. They're all in the same family, and I didn't want to give the wrong information about which plant is which because so many people have them mislabeled, stores have them mislabeled, I might even have them mislabeled. I want to make sure I have all my research done correctly as much as I can before I just start giving you wrong information. The care of them are all pretty much the same, but it gets very confusing. Very, very confusing. I have a lot of notes written right now. I'm trying to trim them down. It's a little difficult. So, all right. So I've added the soil that I need to this. That root is just sticking out. I'll push it down. All right. Okay, give it a little bit of a tap. Make sure all the soil's getting down in there. And he looks good. So that was repotted from its little nursery pot. And he looks good in there. There's some roots sticking out. I'm sorry. Some of them are aerial roots. But that root right there, I'm going to top dress that. So when you water it after repotting it, it depends on when you should water it. If it was very wet and gross and stinky, don't water it for a while. Give it, a few days to a week to water it. If it was dry like mine, I would water it either today or tomorrow. I'm going to let it kind of sit in here and let it do its thing. And that's how you repot your pots, plants.